Okay. Hello, everyone. This is part two of the Designer's Freedom Inside Stories. The world is an image which we didn't have to think about. It is an image that was there before we were an image. So all the mysteries of the self inevitably lead to the mysteries of the world. So if we were to have a global educational reform like inferior studies, not inferior, but I'm just trying to think of a system where people, um, like a phase of their life, they learn from their individualism, and a phase of their life they have access to collectivity. We don't have that collectivity on a advanced level. What I mean by that is, imagine you were a person who wanted to design an advanced civilization, and you suddenly notice, like, let's say, someone you cared about was Buddhist. And suddenly you notice, all right, this person's freaking out. And suddenly you thought, like, what if we created a system that if the person had to come back in, they would, in some sense, not have to go through the same hassle of labor. Right now, a lot of human activity is just going to moving around. A lot of work is getting to work, I feel. There's a sort of journey notion. Now, of course, with the digital age, people are working online. The mysteries of the self that lead to the mysteries of the world lead to the unknown. The unknown is the designer's table, where any known design can be noticed. You can identify form. You can notice, like right now, whoever you are, look at an object, and you can notice that just like how you see a shape and form to that object, if you close your eyes, not necessarily to that object, but your inner realms, gives you access to the design. That means, like, you can imagine visualize an apple pie, but you can't touch it. You could see it though. Do you see? So the mind, it's like the inner realm is the mind's sight, in other words. In some traditions, they call it the mind's eye. Some people felt the third eye was that. Some people felt the third eye was an actual eye, and I'm like, yo, that's too much. Because why if you had a third eye, it's like, what's the point of it if it saw the same realm? That means the whole notion of the third eye was the witness of chaos, the chaotic dimensions and ordered dimensions. Life is like this, where people are in throughout the day, even on a micro level or in a macro level through history. It's as if some people are taking part, they're acting on stage. Some people are in the audience's chair, but the thing is that the whole cycle is moving. What that means is, it's like in the conscious waking state, we're actors. In the dream state, we are script writers. In deep sleep, suddenly there was a power outage in the theater. And in the conscious waking state, the stage is yours, whoever you are. The stage, this moment is, as Omar Khayyam says, this moment is be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. It's happening here. The now is where the attention is. A person's identity is not a physical thing. It's a relationship between different physical moments. That's what memory is. That means we experience yesterday and now we experience today, but today existentially is today. The past is gone. But the mind has an ability to remember the self it was in the past and compare it to the self now to have emotion. And honestly, when a person gets emotional, it's because their value system, their universal, I called it once in a talk, every person has a principle universal philosophy. That means it's as if it's based on the first duality the child becomes conscious of. I noticed that when people go to buy a refrigerator, or whatever, when they go to buy something, the salesperson comes and says whatever. At the end, the salesperson can make the best thing, but at the end, there's an emotional factor to the decision. Which one you feel, you know? And what I mean by that is that emotions may be many people's, again, universal principle philosophies may be universal principle philosophy, not plural. It's emotional. It's probably temperature based. Hot, cold. That's probably the first duality for a lot of people. For some beings, it could be when the breath enters the body. There's this quote ascribed to Da Vinci. He says, to develop a complete mind, study the science of art, study the art of science, learn to see, realize how everything connects to everything else. That everything connects to everything else is diversity without separateness, I would say. The ultimate uh, uh, edge of the mind. That means ordered chaos. That's it. Ordered chaos. That's the story of the world. Meaningless phenomenology suddenly was given value and the linguistic simulation began. Now the linguistic simulation is an advanced, incredibly advanced technology. What that means is the usage of language, the awareness to mortality, the consideration of a cup to even be able to be empty and full. Many animals perhaps don't even consider it. When an animal drinks from a bowl or something, drinks water from a bowl, that animal is not considering how empty or full. Maybe it doesn't have a concept of emptiness or fullness. You know. So what I mean by that emptiness or fullness, I mean there is the instincts. There is like animal behavior is very complex. It's as if every DNA is a different permission, is a unique permission to walk in the world, to see a certain, to see the world in a certain way. You know why oneness is not the solution? Is it can't be the solution, only part of the solution? All those people who care about oneness and love, you know? Because oneness is not for a human. It's not for a person. It's for the presence. It's as if the body speaks a certain language. The body has a sort of intelligent response to the moment. But then when we look at the mind and when we look at the phenomena of free will and just the fact that we notice it, you know what it is? It's as if it was like the way human beings evolved. We put our head out of the water. I honestly think the moment when we as evolutionary creatures went outside of the water, that was the first portal experience. That was like pioneering the I mean the first portal experience is probably the creature opening its eyes, then the creature stepping out of the water. So you can kind of see like experience to be walking through actually portals, different ideological portals or rooms. Aldous Huxley says there are things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. And there's some people who they feel that the third the third eye is that door, you know? The third eye is just the world's intelligence. The third eye is metaphoric, it's not actual. Because there is access to a sight that is not identifying with the cup being half full. And in emptiness, if consciousness maintains itself, imagine for eons you were just sight in empty space and there was no planets, there was no body, there was nothing. Imagine for eons you were just sight, you were space, you were the consciousness, you were the awareness of a galaxy. For eons. But suddenly, time became an invention. There's so many ways the world can move. There's so many ways eyes have opened to the world. And there's so many ways that the world will open our eyes. I remember creating this story, this sci-fi narrative, where in the sci-fi narrative an evil alien civilization comes to attack Earth. They come by in their ships and everything is like in our clouds, and the alien civilization is expecting us to like fight back and defend. But suddenly the alien civilization sees human beings are doing nothing. They're not doing anything. And sorry, they're not that they're not doing anything. They're not paying attention to the evil alien species who's come to invade Earth. And one of the alien warlords is like, "What is this? These guys don't even notice we're here to invade them. What are they doing?" And we're human beings are just building. They're just so busy, you know. They're just working. And the alien goes and says, "Why don't you guys acknowledge us?" Imagine something like that. Humanity says, we're too busy. Who has the time? We're trying to build something here. You know? That means if your attention goes to something better, you are pulled that way. What other choice do you have? Your attention is there. So you can say attention is an inner portal generator. Because what's going on? We're looking at the world, we're looking at the outer realms, and it's echoing as a subjective life. And this subjective life is where the whole notion of honesty, dishonesty, morality, it all comes to our subjective lives. Now, we can have endless struggles. Should we have the subjectivity relate completely to the object? Pretty much when Rene Descartes' mind-body dualism, if I had to explain it to the a person very quickly, I would say it's just like the object and subject are in different dimensions. So if you're conscious as a subject, you know that here's the thing. It's like we are used to it to being space and matter, right? When people think of the universe, it's space and matter. Now I'm saying there is a trio. There's a I remember drawing this artwork. Maybe I can find it and show it to people here. It's called Trinfinitum, something like that. And it was this notion that it's like there's three infinite designs integrated. So what that means is in ancient times they saw not just only four elements, they saw five elements. They saw earth, air, fire, water, and then ether. So they saw even consciousness as an element. So we see that there's matter, there's space, and then there's the one who's aware of the landscape, you know? So it's like unknown plus known self and known world. But when you really go on exploring the known self and known world, you see, because it has to have a relationship with the realm, and the realm is endless. Technically, nobody knows enough to worry, as Terence McKenna says. It's like the outer sky is endless, and so is the inner sky. The freedom of the inner realms has to do with how like the strength in the inner realms is concentration, but not concentration to an object. A sort of concentration that realizes it can instantly evoke the subject. So what it is imagine you're someone who's written a sentence so many times that after a while you don't have to think about the sentence anymore. You don't have to think about your hand writing the sentence. All of that becomes automated, then the attention has more energy to go to a superior inner task. If there is a secret in this world, it's the source of attention. I don't see any greater secret than that. Okay. You know, guys, this idea of the designer's freedom inside stories, it could be a suggestion of a designer of the story inside its own story. You know, that's how the inner realms really appear. You know, you can be as reasonable, but if there is unknown variables, if there is factors you can't see to include in that method of reason, then it's impossible. It's like our reasons change with the seasons, you know. If you are in a world, the meaning of life can't be only about the self. You know, it's like the only way I think it's possible to totally grant the concept of selfishness if you were just, again, empty seeing, if you were just sight in empty space, if you were disembodied. But because there is the biological design, it's as if the mind, the unknown mind, is like, why this known design? Why this? You know, there's some people who look in the mirror and they have questions about their design, their genetical design. And then there are some people who look at the mirror and they have the question about the whole world that's behind them. Guys, Corey in the chat section shares this nice quote. He says, Socrates used to say, "Be still, my soul, you have endured worse than this." Corey, I didn't know you know Socrates. You know, it's like, did you find that time machine on discount? It's a good quote. Yeah, Socrates, he had this whole notion of the inner oracle. The ancient philosophers, the mind of the world had not separated from them. So it was as if there was more authorization. That means taken that the world, if the world is a simulation, then back in ancient times, they had more allowance in their simulation. You can say the notion of gods was that it's like once the attention was on it, the design would manifest. We should treat our attention, the human attention, as life-giving. That means it's like, strangely, it's like because we're the most advanced species, we're doing the most advanced activities. You know, it's strange. It's really strange, the situation. Like when I look at the whole cosmological argument, like, all right, we understand the reason. All right, it could have been, you know, nothing from something. You know, there was a something before there was a nothing. Like it could there could be endless ways we could think about it, but it's like, why this design? And I noticed something specific, guys, which entertains more of an extraterrestrial based theme, that I was like when you, I remember hearing Noam Chomsky speak in one video, and I saw on YouTube where he said language was imported. And the moment he said that, it was literally like as if somebody had accidentally dropped the missing puzzle piece, you know, in this question I had. And the notion of it being imported means that it was something epigenetical. The ability of language was something happened to our ancestors, pretty much. You know? So if language was imported, then it made me feel just the way Noam Chomsky said that. I was like, what does that mean? It was imported by who? Like extraterrestrials? Then I was like, wait. And then I thought about this idea. Then I looked at the different species and I noticed that the ape, the chimp, let's say, are chimp descendants, because evolutionary biologists, they say that the chimp and some unknown descendant, we are the, in some sense, result of that. What does that mean? That means there's an unknown descendant. So I thought that no creature has this level of sophisticated fingers. That means I thought it for a second, all right, let's say like we were, imagine like 1,000 years from now, our species has become an advanced civilization, interstellar level, you know, and let's say 3,600 years from now, we have become an interstellar, let's say, civilization. And so we go and we see that we've become so able that we don't have to even go physically on planets. We could just communicate to them as minds, imagine. So it would be like you go to a species and you think about, how do we communicate to a species that may freak out or is not ready? You would move them from within. You would move the eyes of those species. That means if there was a superior dimensional being, like we look at ants and we could, like, bring our hand, the ant could climb it and we could move our hand somewhere else and the ant could go off, you know? Like I thought, like higher dimensional beings, just like how we look at ants. What if there was some sort of extraterrestrial audience beyond this that was watching humanity? And then I thought, what if that extraterrestrial audience that was watching the Earth thought about which creature to use to build something? And it was as if the human being was enough. It's as if, like, can you imagine right now if lions and every other species we see, that suddenly had evolved like us, like lions were wearing suits, humanoid looking lions, imagine. So I'm saying, like, it's just, I feel that our we could totally be biological, like Iron Man suits, and the mind inside the Iron Man suit is a field. It's not, it's as if like we are leaves in a river moving by the river. We think it's just us here. So the uniqueness of our fingers, the ability of us to communicate, it is too specific. And that's the remarkability of it. That means it's like you can't, it's like it's not just stuff that's outside that's fascinating. It's how your mind is seeing the outside is fascinating. Sometimes, like, I have ideas because of the spontaneous nature of thought, because it's kind of like the inner realms are like an antenna, or let's say, even again, I'll use the term evocational. It's as if it's like the person can suddenly instantly see the other side of every coin. That means I thought that I was a good or bad person, or I thought there was a notion of like a good world and a bad world. Then I was like, it's like an unknown event. And it's like if you have the ability to be conscious of it. It's like our minds are like a machete, our machete in the Amazons as we're exploring, you know, the limits of human civilization. When we look at the design of phenomena, we are looking at how we are also designing phenomena. That means I will honestly say identity, or the phenomena of just the process of identifying with something, that's archaeology. It's just archaeology with the inner realms, though. It's something where you are, it's unknown phenomena. You are brushing the sands off it, and you're just staring at it, you know? And then you give it a meaning, a value, a time, or whatever. It's like we're 8 billion candles on a sphere in a vacuum. It's like, what do we do? And hopefully the symphonies of an advanced civilization will be heard. You know, it would be like back in the day, like I remember seeing some movies depict this, that there was music was a component, kind of charging up the army before the battle was a component to it. And I thought of like, wow, that if we suddenly have rivers of efficiency trying to go towards the same ocean. It's like now our rebellion is no longer physical. We are rebelling against not forgetting that we were from nature. That's the challenge, you know? Today's metaphysics is like, oh, is life, a simulation? The future metaphysics is going to be like, how could there be anything other than a digital world, you know? Because here's the thing, imagine we built an advanced civilization and it looked incredible geometrically. Then we would have to think that means we would, architects would have seen the advanced civilization in their inner realms. The architect can see the building, just like how the director can see the film in their inner realms. The architect can see the building in their inner realms, and they just draw it, they map it out. And that's one of the coolest things we can do as a species in a time where technology in 30 years could become a totally different game. Right now, technology is like, a quiet neighbor. We don't know in the future what kind of neighbor it is. Before I end off, guys, I'm going to just share this notion of the difference between the Buddha, the Buddhic mind, and the Bodhisattvic mind, let's say. The Buddha sought to get rid of suffering. Pretty much he sought immortality. Honestly, when I think about it, yeah, the Buddha freaked out about people are going to die, and he tried to find immortality. And he tried different methods, realizing they were all actions in a temporary realm, but only when he sat down and he stopped participating in a world he didn't trust, he found a moment to see the world again, to find a new way to engage it. That means for me, it's like I remember there was this, like in early video games, there were cheat codes you could put, like the Sims game or the Warcraft game, Like there were cheats you could put, and suddenly you had like everything, or even in the early GTA games on PC, you know. So it was as if you could find something that could handle the you could find a way to move the simulation. That means it's like, what's the second best thing other than getting out of a civilization? Trying to at least get the civilization towards the edge. So here's the difference between the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. The Buddha sought the inner, just the individual self, and he found this individual's paradise. So from individual suffering, he found the individual paradise, the individual heaven. But the individual heaven is where you notice the collective hell. And when you notice the collective hell, you notice that anybody who enters the individual heaven is going to realize, holy shit, it's where we need to go towards the collective heaven. So think of it this way. There is a suffering that every self has in this world, and then there is the world suffering. And we may think that it's lifeless. We may think it's just atomic. We may think that we are thought, even though it's impossible. In deep sleep, who's a thought? That's how void thought is. That in deep sleep, it's not there, and neither are you. The idea of you. But you exist. So existence surpasses thought. We have evidence of this every night. The mind is a grand mystery. It is the most important thing to notice. It is the designer's greatest vision. That as you build the most perfect known system known to the realm, you notice the unknown is its evolution. So what we can do is build a civilization that doesn't have the strength to just exist now, but has already been to infinity and back. You see, the inner realms is free. The inner realms are, I have wings in the inner realms. I could have anything in the inner realms. There's been times where I've like been in a mall and I've seen something, and when I've seen the object, I've just closed my eyes and I've tried to see at different events that object can accompany me in different moments. And it's been a situation where the moment I experienced the object in my inner realms, the desire finished. That means a lot of things. It's like here, it's a discernment between what is an emotional devouring of the moment and what is an intellectual light beam in a dark room. Because what it is that we are stimulus based. So that means how we behave in the world, it's being recycled into the future generations' mindsets. In a narrative work, sci-fi work of mine, there is this view. I created this god. I looked at gravity and I've realized there's never been a god of gravity. I noticed that imagine there was a sort of archetype of this person, this character, in imagine this to be in a narrative, like a story, where this character was a sort of god of gravity. That means anywhere he went, anybody who didn't bow to him, he could instantly raise his hand and the gravity would increase for everyone, you know? And I remember creating this guy, and I called the guy Graviton, in the sci-fi setting, Lord Graviton. But then I remember realizing the freedom of just putting the god of any idea there, right? So then I thought, what would be the ultimate god? That means who would be the god that comes to confront Lord Graviton in the sci-fi narrative, the god of gravity? And I saw the god of time. And then there is one who is beyond the God of time, where the God of time suddenly appears, and he suddenly goes back to a point before Lord Graviton, was even at power or whatever. So it's this very intense narrative. But then the God of time says to the God of gravity, there's a superior God. And suddenly there's this laughter heard, and I remember creating the God of humor. That means beyond reason, there is a paradoxical bridge to a state of mind where space is, and it is matter that's just moving. So you cannot just be identified with a part of the matter, because you're the whole moment noticing the contents within it. That's your presence, by it. So anyways, guys, any problem you have in your life, know there's two sides of a coin to it. There's a design way and there's a story way you can look at it. I look at any problem in my life first. What is the design? Like, what is this problem in front of my view? And then when I look at the design, I see it before I have opinion, and then I have my opinions as another kind of reference, archive of reference. So what that means is, if you as a person just have an ability to look at something, and for that to just be an object without you having a subject over it, do you know? What can I say? Silence and stillness are the wings of the mystic. So thanks for listening, everybody. I will be in the Discord server for further discussion, and I encourage people to join it who have listened. That means um, the mind is an instrument that, as you will, if you have the will, you can play endless melodies. You know. Thanks for listening, everyone. Blessings.